for your business. You know, are you going to have partners or not? So yeah, I think it's a great practice to go through. So it triggers some thought process for everybody and some questions they never thought about. When you go through a business plan writer, or if you're working with a CPA who may help you be writing the business plan, they'll ask you questions that maybe you never thought about.
Again, job security for you
I,
because, oh,
yes,
boy,
they like to see it coming from the individual person, but if there's a CPA that reviewed the numbers, because you will produce financial statements with projected revenue goals for 5 years out and expenses, they want to know that somebody with a background has really looked at that.
well, I guess it makes sense this way. If there's any mistakes, you'll pick it up right away anyway.
Hopefully.
And what about women-owned businesses? I've heard so much about women-owned businesses where they have organizations and there's some benefits. Are there really any benefits to this, or is just a lot of hot air?
There really are a lot of benefits for women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. You know, the bigger corporations have goals every year of spending a certain amount of money with minority business owners in the community. There's a lot of paperwork and red tape to run through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's certain ownership requirements that, you know, that the president of the company should probably be a female or a minority, along with the majority shareholder of the company, which is not always the case. When people go to visit Scott, I'm sure most of the time, if it's husband and wife, it's a 50-50, or you and I would go in and, oh, we're going to be 50-50 owners. But if you had an opportunity to get a minority shareholder, it doesn't hurt you at all.
What kind of benefits are there? What is the big
You will
deal?
get special treatment and preferential treatment when it comes to landing government contracts, if you're doing anything in the government arena, and also you have the ability to approach in the Charlotte area, Bank of America and some of the other ones.
Oh, is that right?
Absolutely. They will put you at the top of the list.
Have you helped arrange for any of those?
I have helped a couple people deal with Duke Energy here in town and also Bank of America.
Oh, it's good to know. So for our viewers, basically, if someone wants to form a business, and if you can arrange it to be a woman-owned business or minority-owned business, that's the best way to go.
If it makes sense from a business standpoint, absolutely. It doesn't hurt to have that extra feather in your cap.
That's great to know. Are small business loans available, or is the credit crunch really taking those things out of the market?
To be honest with you, I have not seen a whole lot of lending, and whether it's small business or large business. I've had a number of people approach me about starting businesses. I've sent them to my best bankers in town, and right now everybody is just so uncertain with the economy that money's really tough to get.
So the credit crunch really has taken its toll on the small businesses. I thought there was a certain amount of money that was set aside for small businesses, just like with the FHA loans, where the government was kind of guaranteeing these loans where it wouldn't be so much of a problem.
There is money that's set aside, not only, as you said, for FHA, but also small business lending. But the problem that we're hearing and seeing a lot is the wheels haven't started to turn yet to loosen up that money and get it out into the economy.
So the banks are still hoarding their cash.
Yes.
Yeah. What about franchises? Do you find that franchises really are still a big thing, because there was a big run on franchises?
Franchises are a great opportunity, especially for somebody who might not have the accounting background and the business background, because they stamp out the perfect business model for you. They help you find your location. They supply you with all the software to do your sales. They supply you with your product most of the time, and expert training. So they are very good options for people, especially in a market like this, because you have automatic brand name recognition.
So if you have the cash, basically it's a turnkey operation. They will train you. I know when I first got in the real estate business, I joined a Century 21 franchise. It was great. I mean, they did all the legal work for you. They did all the accounting, and they set you up, and we went away to Irvine for a week.
It's definitely a great opportunity. I've dealt with a lot of restaurant franchises, and the only fallback I've ever seen is they really want you to have a lot of cash up front and some net worth.
Well, is it worth it, though? In other words, when all is said and done, after the first couple or 3 years, I mean, you actually make that money back as a business owner.
Depending on where you are and what type of business you're in, yes, I think they're very worthwhile.
So don't they help? I guess they help you set up the demographics.
They will do a lot of density testing to make sure that because they want to make money too off of your location through commissions and royalty fees. So they want to make sure there's enough people around you to make that a very viable business for you and for them. And also, if they have a location that fails, all of a sudden their franchise model is not as good as what they're trying to sell.
So they have an interest in making you successful as well.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to see a McDonald's go down the tubes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Compared to, if you started your own burger franchise, nobody other than the bankers really want to see you make it, and they're not going to do a whole lot but come collect the check.
What about from a legal standpoint, Scott? As far as franchises go, aren't they one-sided, those agreements, pretty much?
Well, they can be, because you're buying what I refer to as a business in a box. But as Steve said, there is a lot of benefit to doing that, because the process, the business model is tried and true, and that's what you're investing in. And basically, it's the significant control of the franchisor that drives this, and they have a vested interest in making you successful, because, as Steve said, they'll make money. But at the end of the day, they got you. And it's again, it's a very good business model to buy into, but it does have its downside. And for a small business owner that doesn't have a lot of capital to initiate any kind of business, it may not be a viable option. For a company that's existing, a smaller business that looks to expand, it could very well be. If they have a tried and true business model, they could actually become a franchisor themselves, and that's a very costly and lengthy process, but well worth it if you've got something that you believe in and you want to also market to others. And franchising versus what's known as licensing is another opportunity to expand a business. And licensing is not as heavily regulated as the franchising.
Is it regulated on a federal level?
And state level as well.
Oh, really?
Yep. And from a licensing perspective, which is really driven by contract and relationships between the parties more than anything else, it's not as heavily regulated. But licensing basically is an agreement to distribute goods and services, not necessarily buying into the brand or the logo or having that significant control I talked about, but basically just adding it to whatever goods or services you're peddling already or that you wish to actually peddle. So it's a very cost-effective situation, very cost-effective alternative to expand your business, especially in these times.
I would assume franchising would be more profitable for the franchisor.
Well, it really kind of depends. It is in the franchisor realm. Again, if the franchisee fails, then they're not going to do anything. And again, it's their brand that's on the street that actually failed, and people have a sort of stigma that attaches to that.
Both of you, question. Think about this for a second. Bailouts or stimulus plans, do you think any of these things are going to work for the economy?
I think the stimulus plans are going to work to get the economy moving, but it takes a while for it to trickle down once they decide who they're going to give the money to and what projects they're going to fund. You could look to 12 to 18 months before we start to see it down on the small business owners, from employees who are willing to go out to dinner again and get over the shock of what we've gone through over the last 8 to 12 months.
What do you feel?
Well, my perspective is that until we deal with the housing crisis and keep people in their homes and stop giving money to the banks who turn around and throw people out of their homes, stimulus is not going to work. If somebody's going to get a $1,500 check or get anything from the government, who cares if I don't have a home to come home to?
Well, my friend sent me an email this morning, and we're going to leave it with this one, but he said, you're going to get stimulus money, everybody's going to go out and buy TVs, and basically we're supporting the economy of Japan. Okay, I thought about that a minute, and I said, you're right. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. This is Scott Hornby and Steve Sells. And how do we contact you, Scott, if we have any questions?
Email would be the best, or actually
Which website
telephone.
address?
It's www.lockharthornby.com.
One more time?
www.lockharthornby.com.
Steve?
The best way to reach me is by phone, 704-631-2000.
Website?
Website's in development right now.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming in. We appreciate it, and thanks again.